Hi everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel Mental Matters More. I'm Amanda G, Psych NP, and this is the channel where we talk about all matters related to mental health. Today's topic is going to be addiction, and I was flipping through my Facebook feed and I came across an article that was talking about dry January, which I guess is when people try to not drink for the month of January, probably because they partied a little too hard during the holidays and they just feel a little overextended, and so they want to take January off and be sober. And myself, I've been sober from alcohol for almost 12 years, so I was thinking, like, trying to remember what it was like when I first stopped drinking, and including some of the side effects and things that I felt, which then got me into the topic of addiction, which is clearly a mental health disorder. And I know sometimes people are confused about that. When I'm taking a good family history, they'll say, well, there's alcohol or substance abuse, does that count? And the answer is absolutely yes, it does count. So I wanted to get into addiction today, talk a little bit about how it works in the brain, ways to treat it, ways to deal with it, and take it from there. Okay, so the truth about addiction is that we are all addicted to dope. Sorry, but it's true, and I'm not talking about dope, the drug. I'm talking about a chemical in our brain called dopamine. So dopamine is what gets released in our brain when we have an activity, when we have something pleasurable that happens to us, and it helps our brain actually remember what we were doing when we had that pleasurable feeling. And so then we associate that feeling with feeling good. So dopamine can be released during healthy habits or activities such as running, hanging out with a friend that you really like, listening to a song on the radio that you like, even eating, a good meal or shopping. And it can also be associated with negative things that we do, obviously doing drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, and even plastic surgery can turn into an unhealthy release of dopamine. So the idea is we want to be addicted and getting that dopamine release with good, healthy habits instead of negative habits. But unfortunately, like me, like many of us out there, we've probably at one point in our life developed a negative habit of getting dopamine into our brain, which has resulted in a maladaptive behavior. For me, it was drinking too much when I was in my 20s. And this is a very common thing. 1.4 million adults ages 12 and up actually suffer from alcohol use disorder. And those statistics were from 2019, which is obviously pre-pandemic, and they've skyrocketed since then. So we know that a lot of factors go into that. I think one way people develop negative habits with dopamine is that it's a negative coping skill. For a lot of us, if we are isolated, if we have a feeling that we don't like for whatever reason, we're looking for ways to change that. And instead of lacing up the shoes and going for a 12-mile run, sometimes it's easier at the end of the night to have a couple drinks and unwind. And usually the behavior at first does work, whatever it is that we're doing. Maybe it's shopping. Maybe we like to go out and shop, and that's kind of our stress relief. Maybe it's baking, and we like to bake, and we bake a cake, and that's our stress relief. But eventually, for a lot of us, sometimes that stress relief actually becomes the problem. So when we're talking about addiction and what it is, we have two types. We have the mental addiction, and then we have the physical addiction. Obviously, when people are addicted to things like shopping, gambling, they're not going to have the physical withdrawal symptoms that they would for addictions such as opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder. Those are going to manifest real symptoms: nausea, tremors, headaches, and even seizures, which can be life-threatening. So how do we treat addiction? Lots of ways, and it depends on what we're addicted to. But of course, therapy is one way to treat addictions, to address it, to look at how the behavior started, maybe look at how we're feeling, what we're trying to accomplish, or what we're trying to self-medicate for, and get down to the root of it and be able to replace that negative coping skill with a positive coping skill. Like I have discussed in my other videos about coping skills and triggers, I believe that addiction is really a manifestation of a negative coping skill for a lot of us. So the bottom line is we like to feel good, right? We like to feel good. That's why we do things over and over again. And that dopamine dump in our brain when we're engaging in certain activities makes us feel good and makes us remember what we're doing so that we then want to do it again. Unfortunately, feelings are not facts. facts. And sometimes the things that we are doing, which creates the dopamine dump, are not actually good for us. They're not good for our loved ones. They're not good for our family. So that's when we need to take a closer look at the behaviors and ways to treat it. One of the most important things to assess with addiction is a genetic component. We know that some people have a genetic predisposition to have an addictive personality or have specific addictions to alcohol or drugs. So the truth is, we can't pick our genes. We get what we get and we don't throw a fit, right? We can't pick if we have a genetic predisposition to a drug or alcohol addiction or having an addictive personality. But the good news is, if that does run in our family, there are things that we can look out for and measures that we can take going forward, just to keep that in the back of our mind that, maybe we shouldn't engage in that, or maybe we should be careful because it does run in our family. Another tried and true treatment for addiction are 12-step programs. So 12-step programs are associated with Alcoholics Anonymous and alcohol use disorder, but we've got Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous. So all of these programs basically incorporate the 12-step program, which has been proven effective to help millions of people overcome addictions over the years. There's an organization called Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, and they have all sorts of literature, resources, guides, what to do, how to reach someone in your area if you're looking to find a way to tackle that addiction you've been dealing with. Okay, side note. So, people that have addictions aren't bad people. We get addicted for all sorts of reasons. Maybe life circumstances. Maybe we have a genetic predisposition. Maybe we got some really bad advice. Part of my story is when I was a young single mom struggling with anxiety and depression, I went to my doctor, and his advice to me was to have some wine at night. And so that was just 20 years ago. And I think about how far we've come now with mental health and screening, instead of maybe checking me for postpartum depression or asking if there was substance abuse in my family history. Instead, he told me to have a glass of wine. So maybe you've gotten some bad advice over the years from a family member, a spouse, or even a mental health professional. It's not always what happened. It's where you're going to go from here, and there are ways to treat it successfully. Okay, everybody, thanks again for watching Mental Matters More. My topic today was addiction. I am Amanda G, Psych NP. And I also wanted to mention real quick that there is an amazing TED Talk about addiction that just blew my mind when I watched it a few years ago. So I will add that in the link in the description below for you guys to check out. And again, I want to make videos about what you guys want to hear about. So let me know if I can make a video for you. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.